Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Jen Hanzel about her ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion, with a pre-reception at Italy Isola in EPCOT and a reception at American Adventure Rotunda in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear about how she planned everything, how she chose those locations, and how it all turned out. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
So this is actually not our first wedding. It was technically our second, which people always crack up at. But we got engaged in 2020, which of course is the height of COVID. So we were toying with the idea of just having a tiny little COVID wedding. But I am known as the Disney person in our family. So it felt a little weird to not have the Disney wedding as well. So in 2021, we had a really small wedding in Cape Cod with just 6 of us. And then afterwards we were talking and we were like, you know what, we really should probably do a Disney World wedding, because my mom always kind of had that idea more than me. She'd always told me she pictured me in the wedding dress at the wedding pavilion, because we always saw the brides when we would go as a kid on the monorail. So it was more for my mom to have the Disney wedding.
That's awesome. So then how did your friends and family react when they found out you were going to have a second wedding and it was going to be a Disney?
Yeah, my family was totally on board, very excited. Chris's family is a little bit different. So as I mentioned, we would go to Disney almost every year growing up. We are from Ohio, but we have family in Florida. So we would fly down almost every summer to go to the parks with our family. His family had never been to Disney at all and were not familiar with it. So they were a little reserved because they kind of pictured it. Cheesy is not a good word, but they were just reserved. But they were pleasantly surprised, they told us afterwards.
Oh, that's so great. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
So we invited, the original guest list my mom gave me was around 200, but that was never going to happen. We pared it down to around 90 people, and then 74 ended up attending.
Oh, that's wonderful. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
Yes. So originally we did not. We thought we weren't going to do it. We didn't know if it was going to be, the right choice. But so many people started to ask us questions about it. We ended up doing it. So we picked 2 deluxes, 1 moderate, and 1 economy, I guess is what it's called. So we had the Grand Floridian, the Boardwalk, Riverside, and then All-Star Music.
That's great. Did you find that people chose one particular resort, or it was pretty evenly distributed?
It was quite evenly distributed. We specifically picked the music resort because we did have a good amount of families with children coming. So we did notice every single person who had a child stayed at the music one. And then our friends asked our opinion for the other 3. I had stayed at all of the resorts before, so it was really just budget. We wanted to give, different price points for everyone.
Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
Really, that was based on what was available. Because I specifically wanted the fireworks in the American Rotunda, it was really based off of availability. Because Wednesday is kind of a weird day to get married, which everyone wanted to keep reminding us of. But yeah, it really came down to availability based off what I wanted.
It's funny, though, because they're on vacation, so it's not even really Wednesday.
Right? That's what I told everybody.
How did you choose the Wedding Pavilion for your ceremony and the combination of Italy and American Adventure for your reception?
For the ceremony, like I mentioned, my mom just loved seeing the brides at the Grand Floridian. It just made her so happy. So I really wanted to do that. And a fun fact is one of my bridesmaids, her wife actually helped redesign the Wedding Pavilion when she was an Imagineer at Disney. So it was also just like a little personal thing. And then for the reception, I knew I wanted AAR because it's just so beautiful. And that's kind of just what I had always pictured if I was going to get married there. And then Italy, I wanted a good view for the fireworks. So I thought that would just be good for everyone to be able to see them. I'm sure all of the options are good, but I had physically stood there before and it just seemed like the one I wanted.
Yeah, it's a great view. Did you use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Yes, because I used the Roots for Photography, who were amazing. I literally found them because they did your photo. They did yours, right? I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
Okay,
First
great.
Disney wedding.
Yeah. And then I did Stacy Otto for hair and makeup, who I found through the Facebook group, and she was just absolutely amazing because I gave her nothing to work with, the poor girl. She kept asking me what I wanted, and I was like, I literally have no idea. Please just do whatever you want. And she did great. And then I used Catherine Martell to do the steaming of our dresses. She was amazing.
That's great. Okay. How did you choose your officiant?
Also, the Facebook group. I found Catherine on there, and her energy was just great when we had our first call with her. Plus, her accent is amazing. So, immediately knew we were going to use her.
Did you guys add any entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
No, we just kept everything pretty basic. For the reception, we did use Steve Dunlap after reading so many reviews of all of the different DJs, and he absolutely was incredible.
Wonderful. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors you could recommend from your pre-reception or your reception?
Yes, we were lucky enough to go to the tasting beforehand, and at the tasting, we had these potatoes. They were the stacked potatoes with like bacon. Amazing. And a quinoa salad as well, which neither of those were things I would have thought we would have picked without going to the tasting. So those were great for like a normal menu item. For the cake, we had the marble with Bailey's mousse filling, and then the churro with amaretto filling. Those were both a hit. Everyone had great things to say about that. And we also added the Mickey Boopie pies, which were amazing as well.
Did you add a dessert party or a welcome party or any other kind of events around your day?
No, we went back and forth on the dessert party a lot, but since we were doing the fireworks anyway, we didn't think we needed it. We actually just had our own little welcome party, not officially, but at the Enchanted Rose in the Grand Floridian. We just had everyone meet us there for like drinks and appetizers, but nothing official.
Oh, that's a great idea. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day ran?
Sure. So we had hair and makeup arrive around 10:30, and that was for me, my mom, mother-in-law, 2 bridesmaids, and my maid of honor. And that went until around 5 p.m., which is when the Roots showed up for photography. We did like first looks around 5:30. We had the wedding party photos from like 6 to 7. Made our way to the Wedding Pavilion at 7:30 to 8 to have the ceremony. We had a few more photos after that. We got to do the backstage transportation over to EPCOT around 8:30, which was almost everyone's favorite part, which I thought was funny. And then we had our cocktail hour at 8:30. We watched the fireworks around 9, and then had our reception at 9:30. And then controversially, we only had our reception until 12:30. It was kind of a short reception.
Interesting. And so how did your guests react?
Because we had people coming with children and it was already a weird day and a weird time, we figured that we didn't need like a 5-hour or 6-hour reception. So most people were actually pretty okay with it. It's just when they first heard it, they're like, oh, that's very short. But it was perfect. And everyone was tired, honestly. So it was good.
And everyone felt like they had enough time for dancing and all that.
Yeah, Steve did such a good job of getting everyone up to dance because we were concerned. All of our friends, we're pretty young, I would say, but we're all like, we joke we're 80 years old. So everyone was like, yo, my bedtime's at 8:30. I don't know if we're going to be able to make it. So he was good, though, about getting everyone up. We felt like we had like a full reception with all the dancing and everything, and then it ended perfectly.
That's wonderful. So when you were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention or your budget?
Well, photography was really high because both me and Chris do not like getting our photos taken. And when I emailed the Roots, I pretty much was like, hi, we are very awkward people. Is that okay? And he we had a nice phone conversation about how he's good at getting us like candid shots and making it very fluid, which was true. So we knew we were going to spend, or we didn't mind spending a good amount on photography. And then same with the food and alcohol. The bars are expensive, but my family's Italian, so we knew we were probably going to have to spend a good amount there. And then with the reception decor, I figured because the rotunda is so white, I had a very specific idea of what I wanted. I made a PowerPoint presentation to show them what I wanted. So we kind of had budgeted out prior, knowing the reception decor is probably going to be expensive.
Interesting. And were they able to pull off your vision?
Yes, they did it perfectly. It was amazing. They were really, really good.
And then were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
Yes. So originally we were thinking of doing one of the vintage cars. I never wanted the little carriage just because that's not me. We don't like attention, ironically, having a Disney wedding. But the vintage cars were just so much more expensive than the limo. So we definitely just sticked with the limo for that one. And then we knew the reception was going to be very heavily decorated because that's where you're going to be most of the time. So for the ceremony, we kept it pretty minimal. Like we didn't do a runner. We kept just the organist. So we kept that pretty minimal because we figured it's pretty anyway. And you're not there very long. We were there maybe 30 minutes.
Great tip, yeah. So out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
It really was seeing everyone's reaction to it. I think, again, I know it kind of sucks to say, but some people really think of Disney weddings as being like cheesy and tacky. And so seeing everyone's reactions, being like, oh, this is beautiful and this is like nice and just a wildly different wedding than most people were used to was probably my favorite. Just seeing everyone's reaction was really awesome, yeah. And actually the wedding coordinators that we had, so we had Jean-Marc and Diane. And they truly also were just one of the highlights of our day because Jean-Marc kept helping me with my sleeves because they weren't actually attached to my dress. So he kept helping me like repin them. And Diane was just running around making sure everything was perfect. So those two also just really made the day great.
Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Apparently, one of the families went to EPCOT instead of staying at the resort. So when the bus went to their resort to pick them up, they weren't there. And all of this was happening while we were getting our photos taken because my friend came over and was like, hey, I need your passcode to your phone. And I was just like, what's going on? But they're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But I found out later they needed access to my phone to get their phone number so that Diane could send a car to EPCOT to pick them up to get them to where they needed to go. So that was really the only thing that kind of went wrong, I guess you could say, but they figured it out and it was all fine.
That's wonderful. And was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
I was a little worried about the amount of people we were having for the location because prior to COVID, I think the Rotunda had a higher minimum of people because it's so big, right? And we were only having, 70 to 90 people. So I was worried it was going to look, I guess, empty, but they did such a good job of placing the tables in a good way. And then when everyone was dancing, you really couldn't tell. So that was something I was a little bit worried about, but it turned out to be fine.
That's great. And is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Planning wise, not so much. Since I'm a project manager in my day-to-day life, I was highly prepared, I would say. But both Chris and I wish we ate more during the day. And I feel like everyone always says that. But the guests raved about the food and how good it was. And I think I had 2 or 3 bites all night. So eat the food that you paid for.
Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I would say trust Disney. They definitely know what they're doing. And if you have a plan in mind, they'll probably be able to do it. Within budget can be iffy, but we let them know, hey, this is our budget. I do not want to go into debt over a wedding, so please keep it within this budget. And they were super, super great at giving suggestions on things where we could cut. finding alternatives for things. Like some of my flowers, they gave me alternatives that still looked beautiful, but they were a little cheaper. So that is their job and they know what they're doing. So trust them. I think is a big thing.
That's great advice. Well, Jen, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.